Hello, health coaching class. I hope you're having a great week. Today is Thursday in our new semester. So week one, almost already done. And though I am so glad to have you back and so glad to be employed and in this specific space of employment, I also really look forward to my weekends, especially as I don't know about y'all, but this has been kind of an emotional week. In any case, I wanted to touch base with you in a more personal way, which is how I like to communicate, about some of the questions I've been getting. Please don't see this as a way to discourage your questions, because if I don't know where you have them, then I can't offer you any assistance. So I appreciate them. And generally, we'll try to respond to your emails, even if it is just, thanks for letting me know this was a question. I created this video in response. Because honestly, sitting here answering a bunch of emails just doesn't ignite my passion in the way that speaking to even just a audience that's sort of there but not is more my personality. So a couple of questions have come up about some of the stuff in the course and some of the requirements. And I really, again, always appreciate you highlighting these. So first of all, there was a lack of editing to the graduate project, and so I've altered that. And know that the course is designed to set you up for success. So I know it's there, and I can appreciate that those of you at the graduate level want to know what it is right now. It isn't really released until a certain space in the week by week, such that you have a certain understanding of the content before it's a project that you choose to begin, which doesn't mean that we can't have conversations about that. But if you would like to start now, it might be worth scheduling a time with me to discuss that. So I have fixed that. And I was so glad because people have been consistently asking about the counseling requirement, which has been on pause now for some time. And I was like, where are they finding this? And so someone finally let me know, oh, it's in the frequently asked questions, which I have yet to edit, frankly, just because this has been a really busy week. But the counseling portion of the class is not currently a requirement. It's one that I really appreciate and think is important, but given some of the constraints of our mental health system at the moment, as well as being in a pandemic, it is a requirement that has faded to the background. I would encourage you, if you have an opportunity, to access it. Especially if you are struggling, I think it's a good opportunity to reach out with. And our system at the university, at least, has been expanded to a more virtual space so that there is a lot more access. I also think it's important, like I mentioned in the frequently asked questions, that when we're thinking about helping folks, it is sometimes beneficial to experience that on the other side. And so that was another part of that expression or that assignment, let's say. Also keep in mind that you're working throughout the semester on some of your own personal growth. And so the logs that you're doing each week, and then your culmination of with your Who Am I paper at the end of the semester, are reflections of that self-expression and that work that you're doing with your own self this semester. And historically, those were much more strongly represented by folks that chose to engage in the counseling requirement than those that didn't. Self-reflection, self-awareness, personal growth aren't always fun. They're not always things we're individually engaged or called to explore. But specifically when we're talking about working as helpers, it does become something that's kind of important. And that brings us to your weekly log. So by now, hopefully you've explored the class a little bit. I have a decent amount of your acknowledgments that you've completed the do this first. Some of you are still waiting, and that's okay. But you'll notice in the week by week that this course is set up to open up a week at a time. And in each week, there is a little chart at the top that has my expectations of what I think is going to get you through that week the best. So things like the learning objectives, there are some limited links to readings, and then also all the tasks are linked there. So in week one, you'll notice that there is that chart that says log 1 is due by Sunday, whatever Sunday is. January 24th by midnight. And that if you actually just scroll down, that there's the link there with the language that I've asked you to talk about in that log. The logs are your own space. So you will get feedback from me, and I do read all of them. But I encourage you to engage with them at the level that you're comfortable doing so. So you can explore yourself and the content of this course as deep or as superficially as you feel comfortable with. Everything shared in your log is kept completely confidential. It is not anonymous because you are turning it in. You are not being graded or assessed on what you say or how you say it. But again, as a model, I will moving forward start reflecting back your feedback in different ways as we also are learning to reflect feedback for others in different ways as we progress through the course. So you'll notice that there are 8 starts, and you are expected to do all of them. And I think in the submission, there is actually that starter space. And so if you think about your critical incident of the week, critical is a subjective term, right? So what was something that was important that happened to you this week? For me, yesterday was extremely critical. I spent the entire day kind of glued to the political processes and just having really intense emotional reactions to what I was witnessing and what I wasn't witnessing and what was there and what wasn't there. And so again, someone might say the inauguration, and then that's all that they want to say. Someone might say, like I might say, a really interesting expression of female space was represented yesterday. There were some performances that really, I think, stretched visibility for often marginalized folks, not just as female identified folks, but people with different ability levels and so on and so forth. So that was critical for me this week. It might have been that your car broke down or that your dog threw up on your favorite comforter. It might be that you had something awesome happen to you or something terrible happen to you. Again, I don't know most of you, so I'm not going to dig in and be like, I know that wasn't your most critical. It's just for you to be thinking about, and then you'll notice as we progress through the semester that those critical incidents might change for you. Life might become more heavy, might become more light. The critical things might end up being much more positive or negative. And so again, just to check in with yourself with what's something that happened to you this week that might end up or did feel important to you. But no judgment here. It might be that your fries were hot when they came with dinner, like whatever it is for you. I'm not here to judge you. Your burning question, and again, this is just some of my personality. So the burning question is, if you could get that one question that you really want to know the answer to, what might that question be? And so one of my burning questions for this week, again, was a little bit political. What exactly are these executive orders going to be? What is going to be the crux of what I'm hoping is a pivotal moment, socially and culturally in our society. And so some of that was answered, some of that remains to be seen, but that might be my burning question of the week. And they're not always, I'm not looking at these being questions I need to answer. Sometimes they are questions that I can answer, because sometimes your burning question is what chapters are covered on the midterm or, whatever, things like that. But again, it's all about you. I know the semantics is funny, burning question, but in any case. And then your professional goal of the week. And so I view you both as student professionals, and probably most of you have a different identified profession as well. And so sometimes it's things like applying for graduation or applying to grad school or applying for jobs. Sometimes it's, some of you are really high level folks in your professional spaces already. So, sometimes it's things like my professional goal of the week this week is to get my office space reorganized and make sure my calendar is up to date and all my classes are ready to go, and that I'm, presenting with a strong initial presence. But again, whatever it is. your fantasy of the week. So that one thing that you could make happen if you would, some of, I'm a Cleveland person at heart, so I like the snow. So I inadvertently looked at the weather report the other day and saw the number 10 where I live and was hoping that was inches of snow rather than miles of visibility, which is what it was. So, but for some of you, my fantasy right now might be to be on a beach in Thailand with a noodle bowl and my best friend and an adult beverage. Some days my fantasy is that my spouse cleans up after themselves, like whatever your fantasy is, that one thing you wish you could make true. Your personal goal of the week then is also there for you. So for some of us, it might be about our health habits. It might be about some tasks. Again, I'm a little bit boring, so my personal goal of the week is a little bit about self-care, but in that regard, it's also about chores and getting one or two of the things that have been on my long-term chore list for too long. And so looking to create that space where I lock myself up with that chore and get that done. With that then is your self-feedback. So what is the thing you want to say to yourself? Keeping in mind that you always have this internalized voice that's talking to you, be they your best friend or your worst enemy, depending on where you're at in your personal development as well as your self-awareness space. So it might be like, great job on getting to all your classes, or great job on getting out of the house, or great job on, cleaning that up, or, gosh, you maybe need to try harder with this, or you might want to think about your communications with this person and your relationship being a little bit more whatever it is. So it's one of those spaces where you're talking to yourself in that regard. G is, what did you learn this week? And folks generally want to know if that has to do with this class or otherwise. I mean, I'm not going to assert that you're going to learn something in this class every single week. What have you learned in general? Maybe you learned how to drive stick. Maybe I learned an important lesson this week about not ignoring plumbing red flags. Had a little bit of a plumbing backup. Maybe that was last week. I don't know. It was very traumatic. So I've learned that. And what it means to me is I could have saved myself a lot of anxiety and a lot of financial consequences. And I will use it definitely to pay attention to those signs should they appear again in the future, because I now know what the consequences of denying that they were there might be. So anyways, that was my important lesson from last week. What did I learn this week? This week I've learned a lot too, but let's just focus on that. And then finally, your personal reaction to class activities. And in fairness, there won't always be engaging activities in this class. This is a safe space, again, for you to provide me feedback. And so I often will get your thoughts about the last exam, or your thoughts about some of the content, or your thoughts about some of the assignments that you're required to do. But again, it's just whatever you want that to be. It can be class activities that happened in another class, particularly if you really enjoyed them or found them to be engaging. I always like to hear about what other people are doing well. So we'll go from there. All right, and then I'm going to save it because I've already overspoken. I didn't want this video to quite be this long, but you'll also get another video from me talking very specifically about how to create a health coaching video. I know that is coming up in our calendar as something that is going to be due February 7th, and so I'll make sure that you have that additional instruction for that if you need it. Keeping in mind that the very first video is really about you and not demonstrating a role play in the way that the other videos will be. And then obviously we're still operating in stacked pandemics, one of which is requiring physical isolation from other people. So for some of us, the ways in which we will perform those role play videos will be very different. And so, as I said, I'll be reaching out to you with a little bit more detail about that soon, because there are some ways in which we can help each other and work together to facilitate that goal. All right, so I hope this was helpful. Again, this is on my YouTube channel. It's also in our course now under the Dr. Wagner's video communications. And then you also received the link in your email, so it's here if you need to come back to it, or one and done is fine as well. But know that if I receive questions about any of the content, then I'm going to first send you to the video space before necessarily responding. Okay, so I hope this was helpful. It was good to see y'all. It's a beautiful sunny day here where I am. I hope it is for you there too. I hope your first week of this semester is landing softly. I know this is a stressful one for all of us involved. So hang in there. We're almost 1 week into a 15-week semester, so there's that. All right, take care. I'm going to stop talking now. Talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.